So hello, everybody. It's very nice to see you here, to see your interest for our project. This is NewsArcade, and NewsArcade is a project financed co-funded by the European Union. We're a consortium of publishers, tech companies, and educational institutions. And our objective is to create a news game, which means a game that allows you to play with news in an attempt to get more people interested in how news are produced, and possibly more interested also into news themselves. First, who we are. This is George Ioannidis. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Into, which is one of the two technical partners. So they are the ones who are actually developing the news game that we are working on. And I'm Elena Perotti. I work for the World Association of News Publishers, which is a press freedom organization based in France, in Paris. So why did we decide to submit to the European Union the idea of a news game? There are many reasons, but we decided to focus on two very big ones. First of all, more and more people are actively avoiding the news for many reasons. As you can see, because they negatively impact their mood, they don't feel like they can do anything, but most of all, and this is the reason that we have focused on, because they can't rely on it to be true. They do not trust the news, basically. And as you can see, this is true in Greece, in Bulgaria, in Argentina, but also in Finland, which is, as we know, the happiest countries in the world. So that is where we got really concerned. On the flip side, people who play video games are increasing all around the world. It is a booming business. And the reasons for people to keep playing to keep playing video games is exactly it mirrors very well the reason why they're not going on the news websites, because games make them happy, basically. Games challenge them and make them feel part of a community, and they offer mental stimulation. The news industry has realized that this is a reality, and very reputable news media have decided to insert games into their news producing systems. You can find here some examples. We're not going to delve into them, but what they normally do, New York Times and Al Jazeera in particular, but also Financial Times, is that they choose one piece of news, possibly a complicated one, and they build a game around it. For example, this is how Al Jazeera produced a whole news game about a complicated topic, which is the fish piracy in the seas of Sierra Leone. A piece of news that was not very likely to interest very many people around the world, but the game was so successful, it is still online, it is still played now, that it is almost 10 years old. So we decided basically to do the same thing, but with some changes that hopefully make it more useful both for news literacy and for the news media. This is the whole consortium. We are 8 partners, as I said. There are publishers, institutions that focus on news literacy, and the technical guys who are the ones developing the game. The idea is to allow journalists who produce the piece of news in question to use the same sources, quotes, videos, anything they use to produce their actual news piece, which is on the website of the publisher, and repurpose it so that it becomes part of the game, so that the people can actually use them in the same way as a journalist has. So the online game is then embedded on the websites of the news publisher, and the user, the player, is able to act as if they were a journalist. The idea is that way they will see how sources that are all true, there will not be fake news in these sources, but how sources that are all legitimate and true can be used and angled in different ways in order to fit different agendas, and hopefully they will, like that, understand how crucial it is to try and and visit and inform yourself with reputable content producers. So in short, the game puts the reader in the perspective of a journalist. News publishers hopefully will be able like that to attract new audiences and explain themselves in a way to gain the trust of audiences that didn't trust them before. And the very important thing is that this is the only game in the market that is based on real evolving news. All the examples that I gave you before that are present right now in the market are examples of news games, as I said, based on news that is now old. So on one piece of news, which does not evolve. This one, if the publisher wants, can be done every day on a number of articles, whatever they decide. Why would you do all this? Our final goal is, as I said, to get more people interested in news content, in the news that citizens should be knowing, should be reading. Of course, we try to attract users to the news media websites through gamification. And as I said, it's important to gain trust for journalism through having people play to be a journalist. And the end game, of course, is to develop critical thinking. So to have people understand how different sources can be used for different means, and ultimately who they can trust and who they can't, depending on how the news was created. So what we figured we would do here is to have you experience this game. We have a minimum viable product, so we only worked a few months. We have another year of work before us. So we really look forward to having some feedback from you, whatever you like or dislike from this, from what you will see, and help us develop as good a product as we can. So this is where I stop talking and sharing, and I will give the word to George, who will guide you through the game.
Thank you very much, Elena. I will start sharing my screen now. Yes. So, and essentially start also the presentation. This is about the what we have developed until now. So it's the experience, and we are looking forward, basically, as Elena said, that we get a bit of feedback. In order to do that, we actually have develop first what we call a minimum viable product, which basically means it is working in a good sense, the workflow is covered, but it might be a bit rough on the design, on the features and things like that, but it works. So essentially, what we are going to do is go through a story that we journalists in the team have created. It's about AI and jobs. And then we go through together, and we are going to basically play the game together to see how this is going to work. So I'm going to ask some questions if you want to participate. Otherwise, I do my choices, and then we continue on that. So that's the vote in plenum. But first, so that you understand what you are going to see. So the game basically has different, if you want, it's a mobile experience. It has different pages, different steps. That is a kind of a welcome page. You need to consider all the content that is on these pages as something that a journalist writes. So it's basically sometimes placeholder text, but it's something that a journalist writes, the author to create the story. So it has this welcome page. It has a page about things that you should know regarding the journalistic practice. And it has a page about the story itself. And then things that you should know about the story. So introducing the topic if you want. Now the topic is AI and jobs. So basically different perspectives and introducing the story in general. And then it allows you to choose from A and B. So in a way, take a decision, provides two different options, two different statements, we call them. So you choose from A and B. It asks you a bit of the questions so that you have a possibility to make your mind in a way. And then after this selection, there is another page that allows you to choose between, we call it here C and D. So two different other statements. So, and while you do that, basically, you at the end you choose a photo, you finish up in a way you tell your name, you finish up your story, and you get it to review. And from the review, you get an overall feedback regarding basically the, let's say, if you want, the feedback of the journalist who created the story, depending on the selections that you did. And then you can start sharing that. Everything is powered by a content management system. If you want, the URL is here. You can also make an account. Everyone can make an account and try test it, because that's basically the testing phase. You can do whatever stories you like. They are not published anywhere now, because we only use them internally. So you can test it and provide us feedback. Now, let's look at the AI story. It is here, this link. I'm just going to switch to my browser, I would say.
Yeah, I shared the link to the story onto the chat. So if anybody wants to
Yes,
see them,
you can also
screen.
Visit that. But essentially now, this is the kind of, let's say, welcome page that we said, which is basically introduction. Welcome to the newsroom. News doesn't wait. Could be a bit more visual. Understand that, but could be a photo or a video. Everything can be uploaded, but that's the welcome page, a placeholder. Then we have here some more kind of, let's say, a briefing, which is the knowledge that you need to have about the newsroom. And I will just read that aloud. Before you start, keep in mind that journalists try to make the voice of experts and stakeholders accessible to the general public, focus on certain angle. They don't impose a personal opinion. They make sure the piece holds together, identify links between statements. They don't jump to conclusions based on little information. They validate the article, check the sources, show more precise, show more perspective on a story, and in a way are aware that basically this is pictures and media that are selected. So that's basically if you want, the kind of what you need to know. And if you look at this page, there is on the bottom, there is also, if you want a very specific tip that also can be pre-selected from the journalist. So, a kind of a footer if you want. Now let's move to the next page. And then this is the introduction to the topic, which is AI in jobs. And then it is AI puts 300 million jobs at risk. Forget about the dash two. But in a way, that's a hot topic that basically 300 million jobs across the world could be impacted. That's according to a study by Goldman Sachs. And then the deployment of generative AI tools could trigger disruption and so on. All these ChatGPT discussions. And there are people who basically also say, Goldman Sachs also says here that they estimate that AI will increase global GDP by 7%. Although, these people will lose their job. In a way, all this, you can add some information. It could be a visual, again, a video, audio, an interview, whatever you want. Basically, this is up to the journalists to do. And of course, you can add your sources about the articles that you use. That's good practice if you want. So that's it. And then now, it's actually your turn to make a story. And now we are going forward to the selection pages. So, and then what we actually have here, we have, if you look at this, we have two statements. One that basically, one on the top and the other one on the bottom. We introduce the statements in a way saying, in recent months, generative AI tools met with worldwide popularity. All sectors of the economy are now wondering how the technology will change their business. So statement A is, according to the research of Goldman Sachs, this significant disruption. And then if generative AI delivers, they estimate that 300 million jobs will be automated. And we have a short, in a way, kind of, let's say, gazing here, taking the mood, if you want. How much do you agree with this statement? And then that's one to say, basically, do you agree a lot, not at all? What is here? How many agree a lot with this statement? Basically, that AI will make 300 million jobs obsolete. of you? Hands? One. How many don't agree with that at all? 1 to 1, and then the others are basically undecided, somewhere in the middle. So let's see, middle plus or middle minus. I'll do middle minus basically. Let's say that. So you see basically that after this election, we got a pointer that says the average people, the average of the people who basically answer this question on this specific story thinks that the statement is true. They believe that basically AI will change, will do that. So, and then we just go to the other statement that says, well, AI could mean higher productivity, but it's worth taking a step back when looking at the consequence of the AI in the workplace. Then we have the other statement that says essentially that there is a foundation, Thorsten Bell, the chief executive of the Resolution Foundation, think tank, interviewed by BBC, says we should focus also on potential living standard gains from higher productivity and cheaper to run services, as well as the risk falling behind if other firms and economies better adapt to technological change. So, do you think we should focus on that, or we should basically have don't focus on this improvements and gains from higher productivity? How many do you agree with the statement? 1. Disagree at all? If we should focus on potential, let's say, gains on living standards from this higher productivity, and we should take into account the risk not falling behind, other states, other companies that basically take risks. Should we? Do you agree? 1, 2, the people agree here. So I basically do it here a bit higher up. So you see, at least from the people who answered this question, they were on the average. So they did not really thought that this is, the majority of people basically thought it is work. Now, what you actually need to do is select one of these 2 statements that are above. What is the one that you are going to take over to your story? So is it statement A that says Goldman Sachs, significant disruption, 300 million jobs are going to be lost? Or is it statement B that says we should try to look basically at what are we going to gain from generative AI and this higher productivity, and how it's going to basically that we don't fall behind other players in the market. So what is the one that you would select, A or B?
I would go for A.
You will go for A? Let's go for A. Now I will make an option next time, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go for A. So already where we selected A, you can see basically a kind of the first feedback that a journalist gives based on the selection that you did, and says basically, frames the questions, such statement frames the question, but as the whole story is based on a new report with a very strong claim, it remains essential to put it in perspective because it's a Goldman Sachs report and study. And it says basically, is there any research to balance it with, making another perspective and things like that? So he introduces you in the way of thinking of a journalist, and so on. So the analysis goes whatever. Make sure that you quote that it's not too simplistic and so on. So okay, we move forward. We go now to the next page, which is basically the second selection that we need to do here for our piece. So here it is about basically that the other statement is that again, according to research from Goldman Sachs, wages might be at risk for certain professions, but globally they think that the economy will benefit and the rise, there will be a 7% rise in the GDP. Although the impact might, of course, be very severe, if you want, to a specific part of the population or in the world. And then there is a other one that basically says that the impact depends on our capability to adopt generative AI and make it deliver on the promise. So I think that's one. So generally, the statement says 7% increase globally, and we need to make sure that basically we adopt it and we make sure that we deliver. So you do agree with that statement? So how much do you agree? Disagree? In the middle? One person said, so maybe I say here, I go to the average I created now. So basically, you see that again here, all the people are somewhere in the middle. So there is not clear what does it mean, the average. There is no clear, if you want, opinion here. The next statement, I don't read the in between, but the next statement, because I think you understood how this mechanics works. So the next statement is basically a person from Oxford University, Carl Benedict Frey, and he says basically that the only thing I'm sure of is that there is no way of knowing how many jobs will be replaced by generative AI. And what ChatGPT does, for example, is allow more people with average writing skills to produce new stuff. Of course, journalists will face more competition. Everything will drive down wages, but there will be, in a way, kind of, let's say, we should not be, the essence of the statement, we should not be, if you want, afraid of the new, because GPS technology were introduced previously, Uber, and essentially, that didn't change, a lot, and many jobs were not cut. Like that. So that's what basically this statement says here. Do you agree with that? Basically, that we should not be, that ChatGPT will introduce, will allow more people to write better, produce essays, articles, but essentially it will drive wages down, and we should not, focus on the negative side, if you want, of the technology. Do you agree? Disagree? In the middle? So two people agreed. So I go up here and maybe a bit further. Well, I have to say something about the average because we don't have so many responses. So in a way, the average doesn't say anything. But essentially, it introduces a kind of, let's say, a social dynamics, because essentially we see what others did and things like that. So now we are back on our selection, statement C or D. C was about 7% globally increase from Goldman Sachs, and we should basically adopt it and look at how we are basically to adopt it. Our capability to do that depends on the adoption timeline. And then statement D was that about the ChatGPT will have people write more. Wages will go down, but it will not be the end. I just summarize it into a sentence. So what do you say, C or D? Who is for C? You need to make a selection. Who is for D? So D. So let's go for D. So there is a kind of a feedback that says this kind of, let's say, contradicts the affirmation or whatever, it carries some weight. If a professor of a world-renowned academic institution says something, but it draws also a parallel with other technological-driven changes like GPS, Uber, and so on. Now we are going to the kind of, let's say, part of, in a way, choosing a picture for our nice article, that we are producing in the way. And what we actually have here is these two pictures. So we could take one. The one is basically a person working with half of a head and in a way kind of for the machine. The other is a robot taking the world and whatever. So let me see. Top or down? Who's for top? Down. I take the top because it was more. So I take the top. let's say, how we show, let's say, Tampere, let's say EuroDIG 2023, that's our name. Yeah, that's what we created. Let's move on. That's easy. So now what we actually see here is the piece that we created from the statements we chosen in a way with the photo that we chosen, and we actually say this kind of, let's say, piece according to the research of Goldman Sachs. 300 million jobs are in risk, and then basically that ChatGPT provides the tools for the creative writers to do a lot of more stuff, and essentially we should not be afraid of the new technology. That's basically what we say here as the end result. Finishing off, there is a general feedback of the in a way the author of the journals who created that, explaining what the perspectives you basically put there say, and maybe how you can improve that. And that's how basically it is in a way constructed. You can read that, of course. And then at the end, we are coming to the end that basically we don't really know what this is, but the end would be something like share it, as a kind of, let's say, engagement and things like that. This is played on the phone. So I show it, of course, on a big screen, but you can play it in the phone, and in a way, that's how you basically are going to do that. The idea of this game is that this story will be embedded in a newspaper website, and you can play it there. So in a way, we are under a newspaper website. You can play it there. And in this way, you will, in a way, kind of, let's say, discuss if you want. You will be made aware of, how this works, how our story creation works, and of the actual topics of discussion and things like that. So I think that's the main outcome that we have currently, and I have to say. Let's move now to, well, it was not only a presentation issue, it was now basically we did the work, now you have to work. I'm sorry about that, but it is an easy work. So the idea is to divide into groups. I don't know if you want to do this in groups. I would say better to do it in groups of 3 or 4, just a kind of, let's say, take a corner. I think 3 or 4, we are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 people, so groups of 4 to 5, so that you have also a bit of a discussion. And we are going to give you now not that straightforward topic, AI and jobs, which is basically a more exclusive, if you want, content. It's about transgender athletes. It's a content, it's a story that is in a way, not different from AI and jobs. And that's the link basically you need to open up. And the idea is you do it in groups. You go through this as I did with the previous story. So through the tips, through the story introduction, through the selection, then you end up with something. You do it for 10, maybe 15 minutes, 10 minutes, I would say. And then from each group, we need a kind of a feedback on the following questions. Do you have any ideas how we can improve it? Are additional elements in the story format that we are missing? Have you learned anything about production of news? Is this a tool that can be used is this game format a tool that can be used as a tool to improve media literacy and critical thinking? Also, have in mind that we actually have an audience that is basically 18+. We like to address, let's say, education, media literacy, and critical thinking. And if you have any good ideas for stories, we also want to hear them, because we want to create basically these stories. I think that was it. So now, to make this group of 4 and go to the link of the transgender athletes.
Well, you have it in the chat of the Zoom room.
So you have it in the chat, and it's also here, so we can do that. Should I make the groups? Because So this is a group here. Well, that's another one over there. So 3 groups of 4 is good.
Non ho capito.
You also want to do? 10 minutes here for the groups, and then we move on. Maybe remind us on 10 minutes, when we have 5 minutes left, so we have to be organized. Thank you.
I'm not sure.
I think the other country is journalists as well. Yeah, maybe more approachable. Yeah, in order to facilitate like audiences. I think yeah, but we did I do have some confusion about it as well, but I guess it's kind of just circle back to the like this sounds good to me, and then
We have 10 minutes.
We have, at this point, counting the ones that are online, we have 16 people.
Yes. Precisely, I guess how it kind of feels like, yeah, able to receive the video, and yeah, so it's just like a one big concept sometimes, which I guess makes this.
Just checking when the next session is.
Okay, now we will just redirect you to the actual.
Now doing the, this is not the so that we finish at 12:15 and 15 minutes break. Right? Okay.
6 minutes for this good work and
Great. I will take the notes of the comments.
Now we have to do, like, I will just very quickly, there's two here. The race I was out on the stage. The difference here, it's just neutral. Here it's like this, it's giving me the switch is right. Yes, there's also some softer evidence. In a way, it's good, but it's something topics. It might be taking a stance against this in any way. Spaces or that's a question as well.
well, also people online can do that.
Yes, I sent
Yeah,
the
And also online, say any comments that you might have. So, how's it going? Finished?
Yeah, we're going to definitely think it would be good in the sense that you see how the arguments are kind of built up. So I think this part is considered the most important, at least when it comes to education. But for the actual choices, fact check or like cross check something that's going to do that. Versions like this.
Yes. Okay, let's wrap up in 2 minutes. 2 minutes to wrap up. The kind of, let's say, group working.
Yeah, it's like some people say yes, some people say no. I mean, this is much more also obviously not gendering or anything. Not that I'm shooting media, but it's very clearly making a point as well. Whereas this is quite gender neutral. Yeah, this is done there. Yeah, but it would be the most realistic for maybe lower business. I suppose to play the game, but also to use the skill. I think that's
Okay, so let's D group again, and maybe you can stay there when you want, and we can start. You finished, or you're almost there, almost there. Another minute. I'm generous today. Another minute.
Yeah, thank you. Someone who's 18, someone who's 35,
So, oh yes. I'm sorry. I need to see the chat. Yes. Well, thank you very much for the comment on the chat. Basically, about this, it's really difficult to make this selection, basically, and I agree. And it's basically up. Well, this is a very topic that it's not easy to make a selection on. So I think, though, we will see how we can make it better. We were thinking of adding more options or allowing people to write their own, but I think that's something we still need to discuss. So should we D group? We have only 5 minutes left, so now, how many of you did finish the story? How many of you did, which groups finished the story, please? Did you finish the story? You came to an end?
Yes.
And you two on the back? Yes, you finished the story?
Yes.
Good. So what is your impression now? And maybe, this is an open group discussion. You can say whatever you want, negative, positive, anything actually. And I have to say, I'm mostly interested on the negative things. Because this is basically, we don't want any praise. Just say us what we have to do. Don't package it in a way, in a friendly manner. Please, over there at the back.
I studied journalism.
Yes.
So, and there are like some basic kind of ground rules when you create an article. And what you need to do is rely on the source. So, you basically, now what we talk about here is complete fact check, 100% fact check. Where something is authentic or not. However, when you deal with a human, one human to another, how can you be 100% sure on authenticity of that. Even when we speak of scientific researches, how many times those researchers were not conducted properly? There was something wrong with methodology. So we are like dealing here with the wording on. I mean, in terms of the credibility of journalism is based on the evaluation of the source validity, hoping for the truthfulness of the source.
Yes.
So when we generate stuff like this, we are also led by our intuition, which is also one of the facts that journalists need to take into account when doing a piece. However, it's much more strict and puzzles me more dealing like this if you would deal with one human to another. That's my general remark.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. It's not easy to map all this process and all this idea. That's why we try to do this with this first page of the stories, of the journalist, if you want tips. Any other comment? Thank you.
Even from the first one that just says it here, I would say if I read it, I would say, where is it the need? Where is it? You would like the example, the comment that, like, if it's a global GDP 7% increase, where is it going to go? Because we call it global, but it's going to go to diet. If you say so, and then, for instance, I could see it as an exercise. If you're talking from my perspective, like for political marketing, this transgender, like if you want to say, okay, let's create content on Facebook, which is not journalism, kind of free speech or figure what, but I love research journalism, so huge respect for research journalism. But if create content, then I would pick depending who I want to vote, like who I'm being paid for. So then if I have to create a vote from all the LGBT stuff, then I know which ones to press, and if on the contrary, I want the other spectrum. So in this sense, it's super clear. Oh yeah, these are my voters here.
Yes.
So I know it. So for this as an exercise to students, so they can see how easy it can be to produce some of this content. I see it as an
Well, one thing, basically, one of the use cases is use this in journalism studies. So in a way, kind of, let's say, although in an educational setting, if you want, for further education. So I think this makes sense. Thank you. Other comments, because I'm not about to speak here.
Very interesting, because it takes over this idea of how we use texts nowadays. Thing is, funnily enough, I tried ChatGPT for producing texts on alleged research. So all the texts you might have found there might have been created by ChatGPT. I dare say they might not be half as correct as they look. So the problem really is on the selection of the text and the fragments that you put in order for it to be reliable.
True. It's basically that's in the freedom of the author, if you want, that because somebody creates the story and the feedback and everything. So essentially, you're right. The text there can be in a way arbitrary about anything. A machine can produce it. What we want to convey is the way that that you make a selection by taking into account basically a source, a valid news. Let's say a valid piece of a report and things like that. So I think that's what we want to make. But they say, essentially ChatGPT is going to write all the articles for us. Don't worry about that. Other comments, please.
So you started your presentation by saying that there's the issue that younger people are avoiding news, right? But I do think gamification and games are a way of escaping the continuance of that news. So is it really the answer to that problem, to sort of take away that escapism, to sort of introduce news in that way?
Yes, well, that was only one point basically in our research, and that's what we highlighted here. It is basically the avoidance of news, but there are also things like, well, who is responsible for producing high quality news, or who is responsible for educating people for critical thinking and media literacy. And many of the people we asked said parents and the school system. So in a way, that's where the fault is, why we are actually, not thinking critically. That's what people think, but it's not the only one, I would say. This is a way to kind of, let's say, make this process, the journalistic process, more accessible to other people and try to make it. But it's good. It's good. So we try to answer that in this way. So any ideas, welcome.
We're also trying to make the news publishers gain responsibility towards attracting new users. So also we believe that they need to do something towards the users.
It's not only the parents and the schools.
Exactly.
I mean, we know. I mean, the news publishers need also to do something.
Exactly.
You want to continue that?
No, I have a question about GDPR. So I was reading through the deliverables, and you say that you don't collect any identification data, but you do mention the SOMET, so social media identification using Twitter handles, etc. Well, that probably didn't age too well, but also you linked to different news on the game, and those are not hosted by your servers, so those would not be GDPR compliant necessarily. So,
well, I'm not a GDPR compliant expert. We need to talk to this, but essentially we don't collect. That's why we don't collect any user identifying data here, and we actually link to the sources. So that's what we do. Maybe you think that links are not GDPR compliant?
well, it's more that you told that the whole thing is GDPR safe, and then there's links, so you might assume that those would be GDPR compliant as well. But
Yes.
that might not.
The links are only to there so that the user who wants to get more informed about this topic can read different sources. So those links are links intended to be visited, but that are not supposed to be collecting any data.
Final, you also have, there is also more, please.
So basically, my only suggestion is like when we get feedback from journalists, I would like to know from where it's coming from, like from which kind of journalism. Because BBC journalists can be different from CNN or Al Jazeera. So it would be interesting, to know where it's coming from, or can it also be a book, also to educate more about how to construct news.
Yes.
And
yes, that's a very good point. Well, these stories are created internally by our team. We have two journalists basically from news publishers, a team of news publishers participating. But it's a very good point because essentially we are missing that, and we could easily add it. Also, this idea of adding additional information, let's say, to the stories are created, is also something that is, I think, crucial. Final. Go on.
I think but I have some suggestions that, for example, you have asked that what type of education I will recommend to use it for journalists. It's not so much attractive for normal person. And you have a lot of features that you can choose the amount of agreement of the statement, and then you show the average. And I think I don't know what can be for us. And also it's maybe it's dangerous because it's make bias for the first users that you use this, and after all, I really like that maybe this platform would help the problem that there is in the social media, which is, for example, the summary system that are used in social media. If you are to favor one party,
they will also continue doing that.
More about that party that
Yes.
Yeah, you're right, that's everything is all right. But maybe if the feedback of the statement that you choose is whatever that you think this way, but other people think this, for example, this age and this kind of education.
We don't get.
And this might be help to reduce the danger of social media disaster.
This is, we don't collect any personally identifying information like education and age, but what we could do, we could basically not in a way abstract it to a single value, which is the average, but provide, let's say, a graph. I think that's also useful feedback. Thank you very much. We are short of time and I get here the things. But if you have any other specific ones, we will be around outside so you can talk to us. And thank you very much for your time.
Show the website.
And well, there is, yes, there is one final thing here. I'm sorry. If you want to kind of, let's say, give us a short feedback on the workshop, it is really only 4 questions. Maybe you can do it now or a bit later. So thank you for your time.